experiencing some of what we're getting today. Beautiful sunny skies, 77 degrees, and not a care in the world over in this quarter. But I wanted to say thank you all for tuning in week after week. It's important that we continue to have these conversations. I know that I anticipate the time that I speak with you guys each and every week. I have with me in the studio today my producer, the Rob Father. He is busying about. He keeps me on track. He keeps me in line, and sometimes I keep him out of commission by my not being where I need to be at the proper time. Rob, why don't you give a shout out to the people?
Hey, what's up, Straight Talk family? Happy to be here. Happy belated Kareem.
Yeah, y'all don't know what you guys got to know. Y'all hear Rob in here now. Rob, I'm gonna tell you something, man. You were laying down the tracks on today. You always do a great job of playing during your classic. Was it classic?
Classic Soul Sunday.
Classic Soul Sunday. But I'm going to tell you this today, your little tribute on Prince, it caught my attention. You played some music that we don't often hear. And I think that's one of the really cool things about it. I want to give you a shout out today because I think you did you did your thing on today, Rob.
Thank you very much.
All right. So I want to spend a little time. We've got some great conversation that we have to have on today when it comes to all the things that are happening in our world. But I really want to spend some time talking about a continuation of the conversation that we had when we said Saginaw Rise Up. It's important for us to understand that we have to begin getting in here and doing what is possible. Each of us has a responsibility to play our role and play our part in terms of what is happening as it relates to this gun violence in our communities. We've got to make sure that we can have our voice be heard. We've got to stand up, say it loud. We're often fighting for causes and rights and all of those other things. So there's things that we have to take a responsibility and we've got to get involved in as it relates to our positioning in the community with this whole situation with gun violence. And I want to make sure that we have that conversation on today. So we're going to follow up with the previous conversation that we had, and we're going to bring us to the conclusion of that matter today, all right? But I want to begin with talking about what's on my mind. And I want to talk to y'all community, my people out there, my people in the struggle. I want to talk with you all about what's going on and what is your response to the mask mandates and the social distancing mandates as they disappear. I know that many of you have been saying, am I the only person on the planet yet wearing a mask? I know many of you have asked that question, but I really think that it's time for us to have a conversation. I'm going to tell you, my personal opinion is we've listened to the science as it related. Now, the past 24 months, the past 30 months, you could not hear anything but listen to the science, listen to the science, listen to the science. So now they've come up with a vaccination after we have listened to the science. And people have gotten vaccinated, those who have thought it was important enough to get vaccinated. Many of you are afraid of the boogeyman. That's what I have to call it. We do have some issues in our community, and I don't want to be, tone deaf or deaf to the community. We do have issues in our community in which we have to, take into account in terms of folks of color, people of color, Black folk, as it relates to the vaccinations and the things that have happened to us in this nation under the realm of healthcare or science. However, we have now come to a place. We talked about all the Blacks who were involved with the building of this new vaccine, and everybody's encouraged us to do this. We've heard all of that stuff. Many of you have still chosen not to get vaccinated. We are now living in almost a post-COVID world. And when I say post-COVID world, I'm talking about here in the United States. And I'm talking mentality, not necessarily actuality. And we have now moved into a place where our people are not wearing masks. We've seen the mandates have almost completely lifted. We only got a couple of weeks here. July 1st, there's going to be a new release of new mandates. My thought is go out and live your best life is what the governor's going to say on that day. And so we're now living in what is essentially a post-COVID world. Those who are fully vaccinated, they started tearing it off to encourage those last few people to get vaccinated, or half the world to get vaccinated, I should say, in the last few. But the majority of the world of our world has not been vaccinated. So now they're pushing these new mandates in tiers. They're giving out cars and free tickets to game. I mean, they're giving away everything to get people mandated, vaccinated. But Rob, as you begin to look at where we're going, July 1st is the date. I think that we're going to move into a place that we are not going to have very many mandates anymore as it relates to this COVID. Where are you at with your living? Because I know we've had some conversation, but where are you at? Because I want to find out where is our community as it relates to this vaccination.
Well, the government and everyone else has put that is using the honor system, and knowing human nature, the honor system is not as cracked up as it used to be.
Ain't as honorable as it's supposed to be.
So if you go to a party, if you go to a club or a pub, or a gathering of people that you don't know, strangers right there, and no one's wearing a mask, you're going to assume that everyone's been vaccinated, or at least had their first vaccination. There's something known as a mask anxiety I've recently heard about, where people,
yes, go ahead.
where people were wearing masks regardless. Now, I wear a mask when I go to places like Kroger's or Meijer, Walmart, because I'm not going to trust the system, even though it says, well, you don't have to wear, if you've been vaccinated, you don't have to wear a mask. Well, geez, that's like saying, well, if you don't have HIV, you can have sex without a condom. Why take that chance? So I wouldn't take that chance until we have full herd immunity. And I just another faith in the human race to believe that, okay, if I could know you and I working in the same system here.
Absolutely.
And say, well, okay, I don't think Kareem will lie and go around telling everybody to.
I got my card. I'll pull up my card.
Right. But we're not going to card anybody.
Right.
So you have to go by the honor system. So I'm not taking my chance with people who I don't know. Like when people come here on the show.
Absolutely.
If I don't know the guest, I'm wearing my mask, or at least I'm facing away from them. But if we know the people there, we have a barrier, whatever it is, we're cool.
Well, I'll tell you, Rob, and I think there's a lot of people who feel like you, but there is. And I want to use the word anxiety. There is a serious anxiety that our community is experiencing, and it's understandable why we
mask anxiety.
Absolutely, mask anxiety, but also this anxiety of we're afraid to get back to living,
or afraid of getting the vaccination too, because there's people that go by conspiracy theories.
Absolutely. So we have all of these things going on, but I have to say to my people that are listening out there, when are we going to pick up these, our own sense of judgment, and understand that you have to be able to live your life with some sense of common sense. You pay attention to the science, which I have done since the beginning of this whole thing. Then there became this whole thing about how do I handle these mask mandates and all of this other stuff, and not going to church and not going here as a person of faith. So now it's like, okay, I'm going to trust, I'm trusting in God, and I'm listening to the science. And I'm balancing that with how my personal judgment. And it's really interesting for those of you who are listening. There have been a number of times during this whole ordeal of COVID that I have had to kind of lock into my own sense of wisdom and lean on my relationship and my understanding of God to really get through this thing. There were several occasions where I was invited to do some things. And, I was planning to go, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And some said no. And I didn't go. I listened to that spiritual connection that we all have on the inside. And I made the rational decision, because of X, Y, Z, I'm not going to go. And it turned out really well. I'm not saying that that's always going to work for you, for those who are out there, but it really depends on how much your life is balanced in such a way that you understand that, yes, we have to be wise. Yes, we have to take some precautions. But at the end of the day, if you stop living, if you are forever in a mask, if you're ever social distance, then you are losing your real value to the community that's around you. So I appreciate everything that's going on, everything that everyone's been doing to stay safe, to stay alive. I personally have been affected with people dying in my family from COVID. So this is not something that I'm saying because I have not been impacted severely by this pandemic. But I do want to encourage our community as I look at what we're doing and how we're handling it. There are certain times when you're outside or if you're in the car by yourself, you have always been able to take off your mask. It's okay to go outside and walk down, the street. We've got to begin to do some things. And those of you who are vaccinated, now this becomes my dilemma, Rob. Those of you who have been vaccinated, I am fully vaccinated. Rob is fully vaccinated. We've had these conversations about this. The science now says that you can get back to work. The science now says that you can go to certain places under a certain number of people and not wear your mask. The science now says that if you're a fully vaccinated group of people gathering together, you don't have to wear a mask. The science now says you can go outside and not wear your mask. Yet I see so many people refusing out of fear to let go of the mask. I've seen the social media groups, Rob, say, I don't care what nobody said, I'm keeping the mask. Well, who got you to wear the mask in the first place? Science. So you listen to the science to put on the mask, but you're not listening to the science to take off the mask. Are we just really like rats or a hamster on a hamster wheel just going in circles? Rob, what say you concerning this situation?
Hypocritical, both sides of the mouth there. It's like people, the flu situation. I want to get the flu vaccine. I will get the flu vaccine. You can't be scared of certain things. If you want to live once.
Absolutely.
Okay. Go to your doctor. If your doctor says you need to get the vaccine, of any vaccine, then get the vaccine. If not, then move on. If you see someone without a mask, stay away from that person. If you fear that person, you know.
Absolutely. My thing was, I don't want to die. I mean, I don't like to get sick. I usually don't. I'm pretty healthy. I don't have high blood pressure, diabetes.
But you know that the vaccine, according to the science now that we both have taken, we took different vaccines, but we took the same vaccine as for this COVID thing.
Absolutely.
It means our hospitalization or our illness would be reduced. That's why if you sneeze on me, you come here with a cold. You sneeze on me and say, oh, I'm sneezing now, or I got a cold. I must have got that from Kareem because he's the only person I've been around. I'm trusting my immune system based on my diet and the way I treat my body to get me through that because my body's fighting that. It's the same thing that Don vaccine.
Now, Rob, you have walked. That's exactly the conversation that I'm having. You know, because it's funny because we're coming into the church. Now it's funny because these same people that I see wear masks and they look like they're covered up like a mummy coming to the house of God are the same people I see living their best lives, at the mall and everywhere else. But they're living in a way that they don't even. I mean, why did you get the vaccination?
You're a preacher. I went to church and I remember James Stephen said, "Where is your faith?" So tell your parishioners that do that. Where is your faith? If you believe God, if you believe in God, you believe Jesus will take care of this, then God must apparently give them the science or the information to make the vaccine.
Absolutely.
So now you come to church and you go by faith because you can easily go into a church and like those poor people in South Carolina years ago who got shot. They went there thinking the church was the safest place to go until their lives were taken. I'm just using it as an example. You never know what your last day is.
And so you have absolutely.
As if it was your last day.
Now, Rob, you better preach that message, sir. Y'all give him a correction plate and some water because he needs a break for that one. But I want to thank, but Rob, what you said, I want to thank you for what you said because this is exactly where I'm at. I just want us to take a minute. Let's take a pause. Let's really think about what it is that we're doing. The reason for the vaccination, like we get any other vaccination, was to quell our fears so that we would not get the most extreme kind. Does it say that you can't get it again? No, it doesn't. Does it mean that you can't contract it? No, it doesn't. But it removes us from the ability or from being able to contract this disease and it to elevate in our systems to the highest level, meaning that if we won't be hospitalized, we won't be on a ventilator. Those kinds of things. And
the whole armor of God, which means that the armor of man is helping you defend your body against this virus.
I didn't know we was going to church this morning, but Ephesians 6, 10, 12, 10, 18.
I'm in this Bible now. Come on.
Hey, use the word. So I want us to make sure that we're taking this. Let's begin to think about this as we get back to some semblance of life and interacting with one another. I thought about something today during service. I want to say this and y'all let me know what your opinions are, your thoughts are as well. But today in Sunday service, I thought about altar call going forward. And normally we would call people forward and have people pray with this whole social distancing thing, where people are standing in their seats. And that's absolutely fine because God does not need, in my opinion, to be directly in your face. And I am not God, so I don't have to help him be God. But I just saw that there was just no connection with the people. And it kind of got my mind turning, my spirit was a little grieved by that because now we're at a point that we can't even be what we were supposed to be, which was the church. So let's begin to think about this as we begin to move forward. If you are vaccinated and you have done your part, it's time for you to trust God. Supernatural happens when we do the natural and we trust God for the super. All right, so I'm off my soapbox on that particular thing, but that has really been on my mind today. The next thing, and this is very important, there's been another mass shooting this weekend in Austin, Texas. There were actually 3 mass shootings over the course of this weekend. 8 were killed this weekend and 48 injured in another nonsensical weekend of mass gun violence. This year, we've had over 270 mass shootings this year. This is absolutely ridiculous. And what's crazy about this is that there are gun rights bills that are sitting in Congress that are going unmoved. They're not being touched. They're not being addressed because they recognize that a Republican Congress does not have any issue or any desire to move the needle as it relates to your Second Amendment. For some reason, we have now equated gun regulation with gun being able to have a gun, or our Second Amendment right, which is the right to bear arms. And this is a sad day. So it shows us that this position has become very political. What we're dealing with has now it's no longer about the human right, the right of an American, but it's about politics. It's about money. It's about dollars. It's about control. It's about a time in America's future that I think many people are anticipating. We saw that swell up on January 6th. I don't care what anybody has to tell, what anybody says, but I think January 6th is a showing of where parts of our nation are. It's a showing, and it's indicative of where those outliers in the mainstream of America have positioned themselves. Don't think that the Ku Klux Klan has disappeared. Don't think that white supremacy has run to the hills because we now use the words equity, inclusion, and diversity. No, we've said it for years that they put on cloaks and ties and suits and all of these other things, and they're hiding in the dark of night, but you're living next to them. Those individuals that were here on January 6th are people that all it took was a little bit of work. It's not like these people were brainwashed, but they were listening to someone who spoke to their interest. And I have been a long believer that when you speak to a man's interest, you entertain his mind. So Donald Trump, understanding that, was able to mobilize these individuals. And I think these individuals are saying, listen, we're not going to give up our guns because we got to have them when we have to protect ourselves over this fascist government. So we've got to begin to wake up and realize that we've got to put our thumb and press. We press about everything, but it's time for us to really get serious about demanding change from those that we put in office, both on the federal level as well as the state level, when it comes to guns and their regulation. And we're going to talk more about that in just a little bit more. But one of the issues that we saw pop up, and I thought this was interesting, Rob, in Austin, one of the issues that they had in terms of response was that because of all of the things, they're having a shortage of applicants who are now wanting to be police officers. So they're operating on a shortage of officers, trying to respond to things that are now happening in our community, which brings to the forefront a whole nother conversation that needs to be had. What will be the role of police officers in America's future? It's now been a job that has become so difficult. You're afraid to do anything as an officer, I would imagine. Like, you do this, you're wrong. You do this, you're wrong. They're going to sue you. I mean, and so much is happening. How do you think the impact of 2020, really with officers coming into line of fire and line of sight with poor officers, how do you think it's going to impact how we move forward with this whole issue of gun violence?
Gun violence is going to increase. People are going to feel like they're free to do what they want because there's no fear of the law tracking them down or doing anything. I can understand not wanting a job where you are not popular. If you're a bad doctor, no one's going to go to you. So, why pursue medicine? It's a mix. It's a mixed thing.
There's a stigma there.
There.
Yeah, there's a stigma that's associated with that. So we've got to begin to think about, how is this whole thing going to play out in our community, and what are we going to do to change how this operates in our community? All right, I want to get back to this $52 million. $52 million. I want to say it again, $52 million. When we think about this, I need you all to understand that $52 million is at stake. You've heard a lot about it, the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act. It's what our president, Joe Biden, has put in. There are trillions. There was like 1.3 trillion or $1.7 trillion that is coming to communities. We have $52 million solely in one group of things. The school district, and we haven't even talked about that, who has now received a huge millage on a new school, is going to receive an additional, I think, $65 million just for education. This is money that is absolutely transformative. And because of that, we're doing everything that we can to get the community mobilized. Don't wait. Don't think that, everything is going to happen. Oh, we got money, so it's going to make the community better. If you don't demand and put your hat in the ring and say what it is that you want to see, trust me. And I'll say this, the usual suspects will get that money, and you will see nothing but maybe a flower garden, and you know, some frames at the park. You have to get out. You have to say something while you have a chance, because once that money's gone, it's gone, and you will probably never get that opportunity in our lifetime to see our community get $52 million for something that can really be transformative. So with that being said, there is an event that will be taking place targeting our young people. We want all of our young people. When we say young people, we're not talking 10, 12, 13. We're talking 10, to 48. And if you still feel young, still come out. Everyone that is interested, we need you to come. Our ARPA-palooza is what we're calling it. ARPA-palooza. It'll take place this coming Thursday at 5 p.m. on the courthouse steps. This Thursday at 5 p.m. on the courthouse steps. ARPA-palooza. We're going to be hearing what the young people want to do with this $52 million, and we want everyone to be a part of this. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. We're going to get into the topic of the conversation. We're going to talk about Saginaw Rise Up. We got to stop this killing.
You're listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
America's #1 tool store, Harbor Freight Tools, has a store opening near you. Visit our newest store on Joe
Robert, you going to do anything for the holiday?
Midland. Shop our huge
The 4th of July.
at unbeatable prices. Harbor Freight Tools has served more than 1 million customers as the destination for everything. Tools and
I'm forgetting part because we've been locked up like raccoons.
So much more. Visit harborfreight.com for great deals and to find your nearest location or shop in-store today in Midland.
I can pop a beer in here, right? You guys from Boston.
Critical race theory.
This here is Sam
You
Adams.
know what?
Not too loud. Oh boy. Is there somebody that can help? Come on in the room. It poured right in the keyboard.
Is it crazy or what?
Relax. I spill beer on my computer all the time.
They
Sam
don't want
Adams Boston Lager. The Boston Beer Company. Drink responsibly.
Yeah.
Find that perfect gift at Macy's Friends and Family just in time for Father's Day. Use your coupon or Macy's card and get an extra 30% off brands that rarely go on sale, like Armani Exchange and more. And get 15% off cologne and grooming he'll love. Or shop specials on gifts, like 60% off barware from 30 Stone. Now at Macy's. Star Rewards members earn on every purchase except gift cards, services, and fees. Savings off regular sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
It's Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1.
We are back with more Straight Talk, and we're going to get into the heartbeat of our conversation for today. If you were here just a couple weeks ago, I began a conversation about Saginaw Rise Up. And this is part 2 of that conversation. Some of y'all said, Pastor, you went off the hook. Some of the members like you, but this is really an important piece of what we need to be discussing. We are now dealing and living in a time when there is very little value for human life. And we see that with this continual, this weekly, daily, bi-daily or bi-weekly episodes of gun violence, shootings almost every other night. And it's gone to a point that we've got to begin to either put up or shut up. We've got to put our efforts where our mouth is, or we simply just are going to accept things that this is how our city is going to be. And I really want to recap some of the stuff that I shared with you all on last week. We talked about the homicide divide. And when we talk about the homicide divide, we talk about gun homicide, mass shootings are now like an everyday police involved shooting thing is going on. It's a universal threat to our safety in America. And Black Americans are 10 times more likely than white Americans to die from this type of thing. And our children, Black children and teens, are 14 times more likely to die from gun violence than their white counterparts. This is a serious issue in our community, all right? And we've got to begin to do this. Rob, it's interesting because coming up this coming Saturday, I think it is June 19th. And June 19th for America, for Black Americans, or Juneteenth, as we call it, Juneteenth, 19th, is the celebration of really the signing or the understanding that they were now free. Quick lesson, because I want to put all of this in context. The Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, right? We have Lincoln signing it. there was a civil war that took place. It was the Union, which is the North, and the Confederates, which is the South. The Union won, and this was really about your This is really about your freedom. It was about our freedom as Black folks. They decided instead of giving us our freedom, they would rather separate the country and go to war. So thank God the Union soldiers won. So the Emancipation Proclamation, which was to be enacted and go into effect that following year, was signed. The Northern folks who were slaves or whatever were set free. They understood that they were free. However, and this is why a lot of Blacks call Juneteenth our Independence Day. But I want to make sure that we understand the context of this. When we look at this, and we look at this, everyone that was North that was involved in slavery was free. There were some Blacks that were free before the Emancipation Proclamation. Yes, free in air quotes. I got you, Rob. But what this did was, because there were not enough Union troops that were in Texas. Texas was a stronghold, just as you see it politically in government. A strong Republican stronghold, those who hold on to those old American traditional values. It was a seat of the Confederacy. It was a strong part of the Confederacy. And so when we look at that, they did not allow for their slaves to be free. They kept their slaves in bondage. They didn't care what that Union President Lincoln had signed or what he had done. And it wasn't until we had troops that were gone in. Lee had now surrendered. General Lee had surrendered. And the new general comes into town. They had a new coalition and a cavalry of individuals that had gone in to show them, look, the Union is now in control. And until 2.5 years later, when the Union became in control in Texas, was the Emancipation Proclamation read to those slaves who had now become free, because you can have a law, but until you understand that the law applies to you, you can still be incarcerated. That's a whole other story within itself. Right. So when we look at that, and we talk about Juneteenth coming up, Rob, you're going to say something about Juneteenth.
No, I'm not.
Oh, yeah. He said, no, I'm not. So Juneteenth is coming. What did you say? Not yet. Juneteenth is this coming Saturday, and we look at it, it's a celebration. And I think Terry Reed and Community Auto and some of the others that are out there are going to have a great celebration on this coming Saturday, 3 to 7 p.m., bounce houses, free food, all of that stuff in celebration of the fact that all Blacks were now free. Air quotes, because we still are dealing with some things.
You mentioned the word context. I'm waiting for you to go into the context factor.
So what I'm saying is this. So we were freed physically by the Emancipation Proclamation, which filtered 2.5 years separation, Galveston, Texas, 2.5 years later, now all slaves are technically free. We are now living and having to deal with how do we live out the freedoms, because what that data says that all Americans were given the ability for the life pursuit and of happiness and all of those things, freedom, right? But now we're living in a society and in a community where we are still enchained in many aspects of how we live. That's the context, Rob. Putting that in place, what would you say?
You're free. You can't be bonded, but now what do you do with your freedom? How much freedom are you allowed to have? Can you go out when you want to? Can you buy certain things? Can you pursue certain educational goals? Can you own land? Can you own any property whatsoever without the permission of somebody telling you or giving that to you? You need to have the same freedom as the white person, the person, or as your master. If you're no longer a slave, then you are a master of your own self. So freedom, like you said, it can mean one thing, but it's a whole lot involved in how you can truly be free. Right now, I'm a free person, but I'm still a slave to one thing. I'm a slave to the government because I have to pay taxes in a way. Okay, but then I volunteer myself to do that because I understand how taxes work. I'm a slave to society because I have to follow certain etiquette rules and social rules. I just can't go out running naked in the street or killing anybody because I get mad. So, it's not. I'm not looking at being a slave that way, but I'm following the rules. However, I can be enslaved mentally if I don't educate myself and I don't improve myself on my intelligence level and my way of treating people and treating myself.
Okay, Rob, you have just stepped in to what I want to talk about for the remainder of this show.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
No. That was a great segue, because we have been talking in our community about all of the things that are wrong with our community, and we understand there are a whole litany of things. A lot of them have historical trauma attached to them. A lot of them are things that we inherited over time. A number of these things are things that are trickle down aspects of a life that was, when we think about Juneteenth and being free and going from slavery to what Reformation and all of these other things that are going through the 60s, the 70s, and now we're dealing with the outcomes of trying to correct and overcorrecting in certain areas, which I consider the welfare system to be, creating another dynamic. And so now we are dealing with a place in time where we are, if you were, physically free. No one takes us home and chains us, and makes us work on a particular field. We now have the right. If you don't like your master that you're working for now, you can go stand in a line and get another job and work for another master. We all working for the master, okay? Exactly. but the fact of the matter is, but now there is the spirit of entrepreneurship, and I love seeing in our community. But I need to have this conversation with the village. We are now physically free as it relates to us being citizens of this country. However, we are now incarcerated, to me, in so many ways, in how we are seeing ourselves and how we see our communities, and what Black is. There was a time when I grew up that Black, James Brown, we talk about this all the time around, say it loud.
I'm Black and proud.
And that was the response. And it was a time, I remember growing up in the late 70s with the dashikis and the afros and the symbols of being proud Black people. There was a time where we would understand that who we were and how our look was a part of who we were.
Culture. It
was a part of our culture, right? It was in our DNA. And so now we look at ourselves, and this is totally not where I'm going to go, but since we're here, I want to just kind of drop off something here. Who we were, our culture, what we believed we could be, what we had aspirations for. We were people of great hope. I mean, there's a lot of hope to be had, in the 70s in terms of what could be, seeing that just 10 years prior, we were still slaves and all of these other, not still slaves, but we were still going through the 60s and fighting for rights and fighting for justice. And I grew up in a time when I heard my grandparents and my mom talk about the fight of so many people. Absolutely, Rod. We had this thing called Black pride. We had a pride in being Black. We were excited about what it meant being Black. We were proud to show the world that we were Black. And we had no qualms about it. We truly, as a people, were coming free, understanding that the power of our connectivity. That's what I want to say. And so as we look at this, and we look at Juneteenth coming up here, a celebration of freedom, a celebration of emancipation, we're now confronted to do this and celebrate this amazing time in a time when our community is more violent than we've ever seen it before. Now, I know what somebody is out there saying, oh, Kareem, you got to talk about systemic racism. Oh, Kareem, you got to put this in its proper context, and you got to talk about, the historical trauma that we experienced, which I don't deny. Oh, Kareem, you've got to understand, it's the man. Okay, but there are some things that we as a community, we must position ourselves to do. All right, well, we can no longer continually, like I said, if you're waiting for someone to come in with this S on their chest to swoop in and to save our communities, good luck with that, because it's never going to happen. It hasn't happened now, and it's not going to happen. You'll see more programs like our welfare program. And I'm not dogging the welfare, because there were some components when I was a kid growing up. My mom was on it for a period of time. So she got herself together. She was a single mom raising a child. She found a job. She took care of me and raised me, and then, remarried. And it was something that she could have as a support mechanism along with the greater family. Now, this is what I'm talking about. We've got to get back to old times, some old school family dynamics. And when I said, I'm not talking about the secret stuff that would happen, because there's a lot that happened when we talk about old families. We didn't talk about a lot of things, Rob. There are a lot of secrets that happen in our family. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about the sense of community. And the reason I brought up the thing that Terry Reed and the rest of the guys are doing this coming Saturday is because it brings us back to a place of community. when we did the family affair, I said, why don't we bring back the family affair, which is music and fun?
We talked about that. We started that the Black Party, as far as I know, is
absolutely
a Black thing. That's an expression of community coming together, expression culture, and I loved every block party I went to. It was awesome.
It left you with such a feeling of connectedness. It's a great feeling when you can understand that there's somebody else that may be going through the same thing that you're going through. You can sit down in a lawn chair, listen to some music, and you can, for a period of time, if only for an hour or two, block out all of the cares of the world and just enjoy your fellow brother and sister. So we've got to begin to realize something, that either we're continually going to just talk about what happens on Wall Street, we're going to continually protest whenever another police officer kills someone in our community, or we begin to deal with broken aspects of our community like they are important to us. And Rob, I know this is very controversial because every week it's so easy to blame everybody else. And there are things, there's a whole lot of blame to go around. But I'm talking about what can we as a community do to start the change that we want to see happen. What are you going to say, Rob? I see you.
I was looking at expressions of Black pride, including Harlem Renaissance, Black Wall Street, and just walking out there with your head held high, dressing properly, greeting another person. If I see you in the street, don't know you, what's up?
What's up?
Just
give me a head nod at least. What's up? I don't want you mean mugging me.
Exactly. And I noticed that among a lot of young people, they don't speak to each other. They don't speak to each other. They don't speak to older people. When I was a kid, older guys was, hey, young blood, what's up?
You were taught to speak to your elders.
I was taught to speak, period. You see, especially another brother. This is not a racial thing. It's just that we're in the community.
That connection.
That connection factor. In Philadelphia, every block there was somebody Black there, speak to somebody there. And you never knew who you had. And my mom would say, you never know who you're related to. That's why we call each other brothers and sisters, because of our history.
Now, we have had some things, there's been this whole social norm change, because we have had some things in our society that has happened, so we're not saying don't talk to strangers. But that was something that was very different for our community. But there are some people and some things that we have to be aware for. So we've got to begin to put the messaging. You cannot talk to strangers, but when you know somebody that is a part of the community, you should address them.
Can I add one more thing, Kareem?
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things that James Brown did that I admired about him was that he encouraged Black togetherness and Black pride, even though there were people there who said they were talking about Black stuff or whatever. But remember, our ancestors had their pride snatched away from them.
Absolutely.
So now, just because we want to bring it back to us, say, yes, we are a proud people. We're not saying we're better than you. We're just a proud people. And James Brown did a great job bringing that along.
And so as we begin to look at this mindset, this mind frame, if we are truly a people who are free, if the emancipation did anything for you and your freedom to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I want you to begin to think about what does that mean in terms of your community. I think that when you come from a community, you have the responsibility to reseed yourself in that community. So I'm speaking to pastors, I'm speaking to leaders, politicians, businessmen and women. If you have received anything positive whatsoever from the community that you came from, you have a responsibility to reseed yourself into that community. I love seeing that. There's another event, Rob, that's coming up. They're bringing it's interesting you talked about Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street, hear me, people. There was a huge, a really nice piece that CNN did on Black Wall Street. And I think that LeBron James had something, one of the producers or something to do with that particular piece. And in here, they began to share the story. And it really is a conversation about pride in our community. We don't hear conversations about being proud in our community. As a matter of fact, and folks might get mad about this, every other group behind our group has taken all of our anthems, has taken all of the actions that we've used, our terminology, and they have used it for their own existence. This is why, Rob, when we talk about certain things, I have to be careful of the acronyms that I celebrate. Yes, you may be for Black people, but what is your whole mission? Can I full-throatedly stand behind what it is that you are pushing? Because I am all about Black lives have value all day long. You understand? And I believe that, and as you said, I don't think that takes away from what any other group has or what they are, because we know that they have value because we see where they invest their money. We know that they believe that their lives matter because they make sure that their kids go to private schools, that they live in zip codes with the lowest amount of crime, that they are able to go out to movie theaters and enjoy soda pop machines and all the stuff that we used to be able to do in the 60s. We understand that they have their lives have value. But I have a problem with you shouting out, that Black lives have value or other phrases when you understand that when I get done with this protest, that our kids are going to those same schools that don't have what it is that we need to be successful, that we're going to wake up and we're going to go to a job that our counterparts are being paid a lot more in the positions that they are, that we come from a community that when they're called to a particular household, there's going to be a certain level of treatment that's not going to be met when police officers show up to another. And so I get that rhetoric, but I don't see our community, and I'm talking to my brothers and sisters. Y'all, please don't get mad at me. Call me, send me an email, text me, whatever you want to do. You get mad if you want to. Hopefully, you get mad and you think about what it is I'm talking about.
Well, if you're not mad, you're not listening.
Period. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. So I want you to begin to ask yourself, what are you doing to begin to instill, to rebirth, to speak to the elements of pride that we now see in our community? Rob, I'm going to throw you in on this one. We saw what happened with the Black Queen, Monique. She made a statement on social media. Now, she was in her home in a bathrobe, and she was talking about people going out in public and these bonnets, those things, whatever. And she was like, sisters, come on, you got to, do better than that. They were showing up at the airport, I believe it was.
About the comedian Monique.
Monique, yeah, comedian Monique. She went to social media and she put out a there, listen, let's love ourselves more than that. You're at an airport getting ready to go on the plane, and here you are showing up in your house shoes and your bonnet. It drives me bananas. But Rob, what did you think? I'm sure you heard about that.
I heard some bits and pieces of it, but then it didn't change anything because I have a problem with brothers sagging their pants. So I said, I don't know why this culture or the fad is still going on, because I was taught to dress neatly, especially when you go into places that are public. You can do what you want in your own home, maybe in your own neighborhood, but when you go out there where everyone else is going to judge you, you can't blame them for having certain stereotypes. Oh, but there goes that person looking like trash, Have some pride about yourself. And have some pride in yourself, not because of your skin color. Self-pride. Who you are, Self-respect.
Self-respect.
The moment you treat it like crap, then you complain, well, he shouldn't have treated me like that. It was because I was Black or because I'm a woman or because I'm whatever it is. No, you didn't show self-respect. Check this out. One last thing. I used to wonder why. My ex used to tell me this all the time. She constantly told me, I said, Joyce, why is it when I walk into a room with different people, they look up and they're looking at me? And she said, Rob, you probably don't realize this, but you walk around with your head held up as if you own the place. People can't not understand that or stand at a person who has a certain confidence about themselves. You walk with an air of confidence. I said, well, everybody should walk that way, But there are people there who don't understand that. That's a sense of pride I have in myself. I'm not puffy or anything. I'm not bragging or whatnot. Just that I believe in myself. I know who I am. I know where I came from. And when I walk there, I belong in that particular place.
Rob, it's funny that we're talking about this. This is an important conversation. And it's important because we say things, and I don't think that we understand the undertone or the stereotype or the underlying message that we give. Those of you who know me, if you've ever met me personally, you see me from a distance, you go, oh, Kareem's a great guy. But there are certain people that I have met, and I have seen them or known them or been aware who they were. And they never really had conversation with me, but I would run into them eventually and they would get to know me. They're like, you know what? You're not that. I thought you were just, I just thought you were so arrogant. I never went because you just seemed like you were so conceited and arrogant. And I sat there, I was like, what did I say or what did I do that made you feel like I'm arrogant? Now, I can be arrogant. I'll tell you that in the first, I do recognize that. However, if you were to, I'm the type of person who give you the shirt off my back if necessary. My love for people supersedes my love for myself at times. And sometimes I'm a bit more selfless, and my family says, you do too much for people and people don't give that same in return. But this is what I say. When I hear those things, it makes me laugh because what I was told my entire life, I can remember as a young kid and growing up in my grandparents' home, my parents were working, so I would stay with my grandparents. And I could remember my grandmother and grandfather saying things to me like, don't go out there and embarrass the name. Your last name means something. The Bowen name means something. And, and so I grew up with a sense of pride. It was not pride that I thought I was somebody proud as a peacock, but a sense of internal pride that my name had value. I came from a line of people who had value, understanding this. And it had nothing to do with my grandparents' achievements. My grandfather, I think, dropped out of school in the 6th grade. He never completed high school. But what I saw in him was a proud Black man who worked hard. He came from the South, family picking cotton. I told you to share with you all the story of where, my grandmother, his mom, my great-grandmother, Mama Pearl, where she came from. They were picking cotton. When I went down to visit when I was like 9 years old, they were working in the sugarcane field still. So even though they were set free, they were still working in those same companies, receiving better benefits and wages. But it was all around them. I went to visit my great-grandmother, Mama Pearl, my grandfather's mom, and she was living in a little shotgun house across the street from a bayou what we would consider poor. I remember snakes coming in the house, but my grandfather had such a sense of pride that he instilled in all of his children and his grandchildren, and those great-grandchildren were still around. So much pride that when he died, he was bedridden for 21 years. Those of you know who Reverend John Bowen was in Carlton, he was bedridden for 21 years. But how he instilled the pride in his family and the sense of morality and the sense of respect for your elders, even though he was bedridden 21 years before he passed away, the place that we hated to go whenever we got in trouble was to my grandfather's room. Now, my grandmother was picking up, setting him in bed, helping feed him, do all these things because he was, paralyzed with arthritis. He had gotten to a point that he could no longer walk. But his voice and who he was and the level of respect that we had for him because of how he taught us to respect ourselves and our elders, it rang true. We did not want to disappoint him. And it wasn't about being afraid of him. He could no longer knock us across the room or do any of those things. But it was about disappointing him. He had created an environment and a family dynamic in which we loved each other so much that we wanted the best for each other and that we loved who we were. We were given a level of respect that we were taught to really love and enjoy who we were, that we never wanted to disrespect him because in doing so, we brought tarnish to our name. What are you going to say, Rob? When you think about those kind of dynamics, go ahead. I know your story is special.
My last two, second foster home and my fourth foster home was the same principle. We might have had fusses and whatnot, but we were taught to respect the name. Not necessarily we had different names in the family, but we were taught to respect ourselves and not to embarrass. My mom would say, my mom, Helen Tucker, the late Helen Tucker, don't bring shame on this family. Don't do anything to make me come after you to fix this thing. And when you go out there, walk with your head up high, act like you did something. I put the same values that I was taught by in two foster homes to my son. And to this day, so I'm proud of him because I say, don't embarrass the Robinson name because you are, and I gave you my name because I'm proud of my name.
Absolutely.
I gave you my full name. Okay. So you can walk that way and be a better person than me. I'm Gerald E. Robinson, Senior, Volume 1, you're Volume 2 or Software 2, whatever it is. Be better than me and show yourself the world, that you're better. Years ago, I went to Jesse Jackson came to Philadelphia, and this is when he used to shout the mantra, I am somebody. That's what we should be doing today. And I've seen a lot of kids today, a lot of people today are not proud of themselves. This is all about Black pride. Again, not about pride like the Bible says, don't be
proud. Yeah.
Right. But
good pride.
Self-respect.
Right.
Self-respect and show respect for yourself. And when you walk around with looking trashy in different places where you should be looking neat, that shows a lack of respect for yourself as well as for the area where you're in.
Now I want to let's talk about that because when Monique said that, and that's why I threw that out there about Monique. When she said that, there was such a backlash. Oh, we're tired of dancing and performing for the white America.
See?
Oh, we're tired of having to live up to someone else's. Listen, we're not talking about what white America thinks for you. Right. Because if I go to an event, wait a minute. If you go to an event, in the Black community, that is going to be an event where people that you think that you need to dress into a person, what you gonna do? You gonna get your hair done, nails done, everything did. All right.
Easter Sunday in churches is a fashion show anyway.
Well, it used to be, Rob. It's changed.
But it's an indicator of pride, though. You're proud, not because of your Savior that rose, whatnot, but you're showing, hey, this is my best. But that's why the term Sunday best is so important.
Sunday's best. No, it's a singing. It's only a singing contest now, Rob. But the idea is this: whenever you're going to go to an event that you desire to go to, right? You're going to get dressed. You're going to have your hair done. Your nails are going to look nice.
Dress to impress.
You're going to absolutely. That's what we used to say: dress to impress. And so you're going to come with everything together. So my thing is this, and you have the right to do that, right? And nobody's going to go around dressed to the nines at all times. But there is a sense of decency, I think, that we have lost as a community, that it's okay to just go around looking however. Now, this is the thing that Monique said, and I'm going to stand by that 1,000%. My queen, much love, much support. I'm glad somebody addressed it. I'm glad somebody had enough love for our community to take the bumps and the bruises, because that's what we do. We often want to kill the messenger. But what Monique said was, listen, hair bonnets, and what's under that hair bonnet is a protective system. That's why it's silk on the inside, so that when you lay on your cotton pillows, if you don't have silk pillows, that you're not pulling at your hair, destroying your hair. It helps you to retain the moisture in your hair. Let's talk about what the bonnets are for now. It's for sleeping and protecting your hair when you lay down so that you don't mess up your hair.
Do-rags the same thing.
Do-rags the same thing. If you don't have waves by 10 a.m., brother, you're not going to get them. Okay? So these are things that we have just allowed. You know, there was a saying that my grandparents and older people used to say that, you know, you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And we have now seen that our lack of parenting, our desire for freedoms and our self-expression and all of these things have not only given people the right to make self-expression, to have self-expression, but it is also taking away some key things which we consider community norms. And what I believe Monique was saying, it wasn't about trying to oppress or repress or impress anybody out there, but it was really about, let's get back to a place where there were some community norms that we had, that we could govern ourselves by, that we could expect. I should be able to come with my brothers and sisters and not have to deal with your nautical Fruit of the Looms or whatever kind of undergarments that you wear. But now we see that people they are making their clothes fit in such a, I was like, how in the world can you have skinny jeans on and still sag? Well, it's because we've decided to take the belt and put it underneath our buttocks instead of pulling it up above your waist the way that pants were designed to be made. Pants were not designed to be made underneath your butt. That's why they come with belt loops, because your belt goes on your waist. Now, people, let's begin to have this conversation. I know that the people said, oh, you know, you just let people do what they want. But, you know, it was funny because I had one of my guys, Rob, that was working with me. And I said, on my job, so you got to have belts. Your pants are on your waist. That's how it, and he from the D. And not that has anything to do with it, but, you know, he's like, yo, man, all right, man. He has his pants on. And I'm sitting there watching him hold his pants with one hand, and he's spraying or painting something with the other. I'm like, how much easier could this be if you just put a belt on and have two hands free to be able to work?
Try walking. I mean, when they start walking and running like penguins, you know.
It was fun. A police officer caught one guy because he couldn't run because his pants were around his waist. But I don't want to get off on a tangent. I want us to begin to understand the concept and the idea. We got to get back to this place of pride within our community. Now, saying that to say this, as we begin to look at everything that is unraveling in our communities across the country, you know, it's really a sad thing when the United Nations has to, you know, sanction our country over the fact that we have allowed gun violence to be pervasive. We are a nation who has more guns than any other nation in the world, okay? And so we are dealing with this issue of gun violence. And I know that there's a responsibility for our educational system. I know there is a part of responsibility that our government must take place and our politicians and elected officials. But there is a role that we must play as a community, and that's what I'm here to say. We have this whole street code, and you know, we've all heard it, snitches get stitches. You know, how in the world can we continually have people who are being shot in our communities? Last funeral I was a part of, young boy gets shot in the street playing basketball about 7 o'clock in the day. I mean, there's people everywhere. People saw him run up, saw him get shit. They're looking for people to say something, and people get silent. Now, I think in that particular case, they knew what kind of taking place. The reason these things continually happen is because you allow them to happen. And somebody say, well, I don't want no issues. Then you're not, what you're saying is that your life has only become about self-preservation. And if it means that you have to speak up and say something out loud for the benefit of the community, for the benefit of the village, that you're not willing to do so. And Rob, I think this is one of the key pieces that I see in our society now that we're supposedly free, that still hasn't changed in our mind, because what we fail to realize is that what made the movement of progress, of change, of laws that govern us happen in the 60s is the fact that our lives were only good if it served for the greater good. That we place a greater value on the community over self-preservation. And it's time for us to get back. So this snitches get stitches. So we have now allowed street code to govern how our communities will progress. We cry about it, mothers crying in the streets, a father burying another child, brothers are upset and want to go back for retaliation. And we have allowed the codes of the street to stop us from really fighting for our communities. And I'm going to tell you that until we begin to take back our streets, that we're willing to say, no, I saw something, so I'm going to say something. Until we're willing to stand in our community streets and begin to engage the young people where we see them. We know that now we're living in a community that when you get a whole bunch of young people together, something usually happens. And that's any color of young people, white, black, Puerto Rican, Asian, it doesn't matter. Because young people are moved by their immediate feelings. We got to begin to teach our children conflict resolution. But it's hard to teach young people conflict resolution when we are selling so many guns over the shelves. Every TV show that you turn on now has something, guns are showing up. The greatest movies at the box office, the ones where there's guns ablazing. We have begun to celebrate the fact that guns. We have taught an element of toxic masculinity that I'm not sure how to even begin to dismantle, Rob. And when I use the term toxic masculinity simply means this. It's machismo. It is coolness. It's bravado. It's I'm a man, ain't I? You know, it's that kind of understanding. We have equated having juice, like the movie said, having respect in the street with a gun. There used to be a time when we would put up our hands, and if there was an issue, we'd fight it out. And everybody would live to see it another day. You may hit a little beat up, little bumps and bruises, black eye, busted lip. You may get razzed a little bit. But what it did is it allowed you to come back and find common sense. Some of you are my biggest folks that I got on the playground fights with most, Rob, when I was a kid, are some of my greatest friends today. They're ones we can recant those stories and share those dreams, but you can't come back from a bullet in the back of the head. But it's going to take us to begin to understand that yes, the world owes us a lot. Yes, this government owes us a lot. Yes, America owes us a lot. But are you going to continually allow things to go as they are, even if they're never going to respond to the things and the cries that you have for help and change? Or are we going to begin to take a step in the right direction? I know there's been a lot of people out there, and for all of you that work with young people and all of you that are doing these amazing things and programs, I want to salute you and your efforts. I want to say keep going. If nobody else appreciates you, I appreciate you. And so this summer, as we begin to move forward, we're going to begin to make noise in our communities to bring change. I thank you guys for tuning in this evening with me. This is Straight Talk, so sometimes I'll give it to you just how I feel it. No filter, no chaser. But that's how we roll here. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Juneteenth is coming this Saturday. Get out there to Community Auto 2 over there on Park Street. Celebrate hot dogs, bounce houses. Let's bring back a sense of community and a sense of pride. I love you all. Take care of yourselves and each other. Grace and peace.
Been listening to Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen on KISS 107.1. The views and opinions expressed on Straight Talk with Kareem Bowen by the host, its guest, or call-ins do not necessarily represent